Cown RV Park. I have G2 services, septic services, doing my install. And these are the issues that I have that they have not completed. The tanks were set back in May and they don't come out. They keep making excuses why they can't come out and finish the job. Say it's too wet yet I can drive on the property. I've had dump trucks back through here, all kinds of equipment. And the whole month of August there was no rain. The first 2 weeks of September, no rain. Yet no work has been completed. And then the work that we have done is unsatisfactory. It's not professional work at all. So starting from the National Electric Code requires a 30 amp breaker, and from this disconnect goes down to that control box down there. So the wiring for that is supposed to be number 10. It will be a 10-3 wire. As we can see here, this was installed using number 14 wire. That is unacceptable to the National Electric Code. And then we can see we're going to our first tank. So we just covered up these tanks on September the 24th. There was 5 loads of dirt that was sitting right here, and we just got around to finally spreading that dirt. But the whole issue, I even told them when he set the tanks, the lids need to be sealed, and that's a requirement of the TCQ and of Galveston County. So all these lids, if you look down inside of here, you'll see all the mud that has washed out from each one of these because they're not sealed. So each one of these little clips. So a professional, what they would have done, they would have put because it's 3 foot down to the tanks. They would have put the 3 foot riser. That way you don't have to silicone seal all that, or put a gasket on it, is what the TCQ requires. Instead, we got a whole bunch of risers all stacked up, and every single one of them, every time it rains, it leaks water into my tank. So now my tank is completely full of mud. So now we come over to the outlet, so you see it's the exact same thing. None of the tanks are sealed. Same thing over here. So here's my treatment tank right here. So I have 2 lids, and the clarifying chamber, he didn't even put no risers whatsoever. It's 3 feet underground. So right here should be another riser, so I have access to clean out this tank and do any type of maintenance on the tank. Yet there's nothing there. We come over to the pump. This comes into the this is your pump tank. We can see here all the connections going into the tank, and I forgot to point out over at the aeration tank, all the pipes coming through, none of the pipes are sealed. There are certain things that you can do to seal these, but this is unacceptable. So all that's got to be sealed. And again, you can see where all the mud, all the sand keeps building up, and all these edges and filled up with mud. And of course the wires come in here, nothing's sealed through here, comes up here. And so this control box is not mounted according to the National Electric Code. National Electric Code requires any type of box with a breaker in it to be at a minimum of 3 feet. And this is only 2 feet right here. I even brought this out to Gary that he had it 1 foot, then he raised it. I said, you need to add another 2 foot. And then what he does, he puts it here. So as you can see, this box is supposed to be, according to the manufacturer of the box itself, this box, see how it just slops like this? This box is to be firmly mounted to a post. The post is to be 3 feet in the ground with concrete, and then to be mounted to a 4x4 post. And the manufacturer here says that it actually has the top of this box is supposed to be 5 feet. But according to National Electric Code, the minimum that it can be is 3 feet. So we're not even meeting the minimum of the National Electric Code or the manufacturer and suggestions of proper installation. Notice how I did all the connections here. So in order to get it off the ground, all we did was put connectors on here instead of properly splicing the wires. And he didn't even take the time to properly, you have silicone nut splices, he didn't even use those, but technically this should be spliced together with a wrap around it. So it's a solid connection all the way up to here. Then we have the aeration. So they had the pump sitting right here on top of this. according to the manufacturer of the tank, this is actually supposed to sit on a concrete pad, not on the tank. It outright tells you in the instructions from the manufacturer on the drawing, do not set this on the tank. This and this are supposed to be mounted away from the tank. So you can see, this is the water that's just built up. This is water, so we got a bunch of risers just sitting on top of the tank, and this is just the water that builds up. Additional issue that we can see right here, you can see the poor quality of craftsmanship. That was cocked at an angle. So this is where it goes to the drain field, and this is a filter, a 100 micron filter, and there's supposed to be 2 of them. We don't use any type of silicone tape, we don't, or Teflon tape or putty. That's just threaded on there. You walk over to my drain field. Oh, no, one other thing is here, instead of properly connecting this, they have a little connection that'll go on top of that. It goes through the lid. It was just sitting like this. And then the rubber from this right here, there's only one clamp on it. We didn't even put another clamp on the other side. And of course, the lid not even screwed down. So if there was to ever be water come up, it would just push it right on off and pop this off of there. Then again, you look at the connections here. This is supposed to be a solid connection. You see the hole in the pipe right there. This is a pipe fitting, not electrical fitting. There's supposed to be bushings on this right here. There should be a bushing on top of that, a bushing on there, and a bushing on there. And the same thing, I missed it over at the disconnect. There's no bushings on them either. But this is poor quality work right here. This is not the proper way to make a connection. This piping is not properly connected. That should be PVC. We got this flex pipe, and just stick some glue in there. This is an improper connection. Again, we have a plumbing fitting sitting on this instead of using just a regular fitting. Poor quality work altogether. And then you look on even the back of it, looks like we just grabbed some old fittings. On the back here, you can see where the pipe's all scraped up. So just very poor quality craftsmanship altogether. We come over to the drain field, and and there's supposed to be another, here's my clean out tank. There should be another manway right here, and it's all covered up all the way to the ground, 3 feet down. Come over to my drain field, and over at the drain field, so when they finish filling this up, they had to leave this uncovered for the Galveston County Engineering Department to do their inspection to make sure all the loops were proper. So they knocked the pipe right there. So they damaged that. And then what you have is vacuum breaker valves. You come down here and there's a vacuum breaker valve that's supposed to be inside of these covers. So right here, I reported to them a long time ago before we dropped the dirt. There's 2 of them right there. I have pictures of one of them. It's outside the box. It's not even inside the box. They're supposed to be inside the box. And if y'all show pictures of the original installation, they're side by side. So that means one of the headers got moved over. That header got moved over 6 inches at the back end of the field where the pipe makes a loop. It pulls that whole pipe and puts a kink on it. So now I don't have a return flush line to go back to the tank. As the water goes down, comes back around, it goes in the header back out to the tank. So now it can't do that because it's kinked off at the back. A good installer would actually put 90s on the end instead of a looping the drip line. If they put these little 90s on it, another 90, that would keep that from happening. You barely walk on this, and then especially once this gets all wet and say it was flooded and it has movement on it, it very easily kinks the piping. I'll show some pictures of where the tubing is kinked on the end when they did the install. So we'll come over and show it so that never got repaired, and there was 5 loads of dirt that were dropped off to compensate. The dump truck company that backed into it gave the 5 loads of sand to finish filling that in to compensate for this right here. Another issue, come down here, we look at these are the vacuum breaker valves. So this box, I got pictures of this box when it was damaged when it was first installed, when they came back. So it's still the same, but you notice there's only one vacuum breaker valve. Both vacuum breaker valves are supposed to be inside of there. And on the original install, I'll show pictures of that. This and this are side by side. So the problem is this got moved, so it does the same thing as it did over there. It kinks up all the lines. So basically, half of my drain field is not being utilized. The return line, the line doesn't come back down. So half the drain field is not even being properly utilized because it's been kinked. And of course that should have been, this was completely covered in mud. I'm the one who uncovered this right here. I dug this out trying to find it. And this was completely covered up. It does no beneficial whatsoever when it's completely covered in dirt. It's supposed to be a vacuum breaker, so it can't pull, it can't do its job when it's covered in mud. And you come here, this is what it's supposed to look like. So we got this one covered up. So this is what it should have looked like. But we couldn't even center it on here, but there's the 2 vacuum breakers inside of the container. That's how it's supposed to be. So that's how the other ones should have been. And there's other issues I've had from the install of the tanks. When we go back over to the tanks, I'll make another video on that later showing the issues. I got a bunch of pictures. I had to do all the surveying myself. There's boundary markers laid out on the property. I showed up and no surveying equipment whatsoever. The tanks were 10 inches too low, so that caused improper slope. There's too much, that would have been too much weight on the tanks as well. They had to pull the tank, they had the tank right in the middle of my road was supposed to be. And the middle tank, the aeration tank, is actually supposed to be lower so the water can flow back out of it from the pump, from the trash tank. They had it raised up like that, so it couldn't even do its job. And I have pictures and videos of all that when it was on the install and the issues, but I can make another video on that. But these are the issues I need fixed. They haven't been fixed since May. And so I need to get another contractor out here to take care of this and do a proper install so I can get my system up and running. This has already delayed me from being able to open up my RV parks. I've already lost 4 months of business because it could have been opened up sooner, and we just keep delaying it. I wanted all this dirt spread, no heavy equipment coming on my road, so I've been delaying so that it could be taken care of. Another issue that Gary complains about is that he needs a trailer with bacteria to even get the system running, but none of the lids are sealed, nothing's done correctly, so you can't even put a trailer in service. You don't want that bacteria, that's a violation. He complains there's no power. I have a special generator, I have pictures, or I told him from the get-go, I have a special generator that powers my whole house that runs through an inverter to make the power clean. Yet he even used a generator to demonstrate to the inspector the system is operational. He hasn't been able to demonstrate that to me. He hasn't taken care of nothing with the lids. So that's forcing me to have to find another contractor that will do the job right.